in eastern Canada and the northeast United States until it eventually evolved into the game we know today as field lacrosse. This is the bronze medal match of the 1986 World Lacrosse Championships between Australia and England. The standings after the round-robin portion of the tournament: the United States in first place at 3-0, Canada second at 2-1. They'll play for the gold medal. Australia was third at 1-2, and the English fourth with no wins and 3 starts. Hello, everyone. I'm Steve Cooney at Varsity Stadium in Toronto. Welcome to this bronze medal matchup between the Aussies and the English. With me is Jim Bishop, a name familiar to lacrosse fans throughout Canada for his many years of association as coach of the Oshawa Green Gales, winners of many Minto Cups when Jim was coaching. Jim, the box game that you coached for so many years, a little bit different than the field game.
Quite a bit different, particularly in the defense and the number of players that are used during the game. And the field game, the long field of 110 yards, they use 10 players. In box, it's 6. Box lacrosse probably in style a little more like basketball. But the big rule out here that is different is the hitting part of the game when the ball's down on the field, and we're going to see a lot of hitting from the side tonight.
All right, here's a brief look at some of the rule differences or the rule intricacies of the field game. First of all, it is in 4 25-minute quarters. 10 players to a side, a goaltender, 3 defenders, 3 midfielders, and 3 attackers. As I mentioned, 4 25-minute quarters in the game. They'll run on straight time. Penalties a little bit different, too. They can vary in length from 30 seconds to 3 minutes, depending on the severity of the infraction. Body checking, as Jim mentioned, there'll be lots of it. Anybody within 9 feet of the ball is legal game, and that should make for some interesting times. We'll be back with the opening face-off of this bronze medal match between Australia and England in just a moment. This is the 1986 World Lacrosse Championships from Toronto. For the opening face-off of this bronze medal match between Australia and England. Australia in the light or yellow uniforms with a green trim. They're defending the right side of the screen, the south end of the field here at Varsity Stadium in Toronto. The English are in the dark blue uniforms with the red and white trim. They're defending the north end of the field on the left of your screen. And we're just going out for the introductions now. The players will go over and shake each other's hands before the match begins. Very briefly, the goaltenders in tonight's game for Australia: Bruce Freeman, a 30-year-old veteran from the Chadstone Lacrosse Club. And for England, Peter Condren, who's played very well in this tournament, Jim. He's from the Cheadle Lacrosse Club in England.
He's kept them in games where they really didn't deserve to be in. I think from England's point of view, they better get up the way they were against Canada in the opening game than where they played extremely well. Now we're ready for the face-off.
In there for Australia, John Butkiewicz, a veteran of 4 World Championship tournaments. He's 34 years of age, and he's a face-off specialist. Very often you'll see him take the draw and just leave the field right after that. Taking the draw for England is Paul Everard. Australia wins the draw right from the face-off. A good shot on net by Peter Cann, another veteran. This is also his 4th World Championship. He's a vital part of that Australian attack unit.
Australia get that ball on the first ball out of bounds. On the shot on the net, the player nearest to the ball when it goes out, his team gets possession.
And that's usually the attack team, the offensive team, because they generally have somebody in behind the net to set up or quarterback the offense, much like Wayne Gretzky does in hockey. You'll notice the player configuration as the game goes on, as Australia moves in for another scoring chance, but they're forced outside by Everard. Now they get it in behind the net. We'll go over that configuration in a moment. The Australians moving in front. First goal of the game scored by number 14, Jeff Kennedy. And that puts Australia up 1-0. You'd really have to say they're heavily favored to win this bronze medal match, Jim.
Yeah, they are favored to win, and they're going up against a very strong. There's the shot as Kennedy moved in. Incidentally, they isolated Kennedy out to the left of the cage. And he went one-on-one on the long stick. Here's a replay again. A fine bounce shot in which Condren really had no opportunity at all.
Facing off for Australia this time, Richard Tillotson, and he generally goes in every second face-off. They'll have Butkiewicz in for one, Tillotson in for the other one. He's the youngster, the heir apparent to the face-off role of that Australian team. The Australians starting into the attack zone once again. English defenders trying to get the stick on the ball. They force it out of bounds off the pass, so the possession will go over to England. Good defense that time by the English. Everard starts it out. He's their face-off man. He kind of quarterbacks that English team. They pass it back to the goaltender, Condren. And very often you'll see the goalie play a vital part in that attack unit as they come out of their zone on either team. That's one of the oddities of the field game. Now, the rules we were mentioning. Each team has to have 4 players in the defensive zone, including the goalie at all times. If they get a man out of that defensive zone, then it's called offside if they don't have the 4 men in there. Now, any one of the long sticks or the goalie can come out of the zone, but if he does, somebody has to drop back and take his place. At the same time, each team has to have 3 players minimum in the attack zone at all times. So that's why you'll see players hanging up around midfield. In hockey, you used to call those guys floaters, but in lacrosse, that's part of the game. So 4 defenders back behind your own side of the midfield, 3 attackers on the other side of the midfield at all times. Otherwise, offside in each instance, and those are 2 of the only 3 types of offsides that are called.
Well, there's a case of the English defense coming up very strong. They put the ball out of bounds and a change with England regaining possession.
The English defense has been very tight in this first few minutes of this opening quarter. The quarters are 25 minutes in length, as we mentioned off the top of the show. The English coming out now. And with the ball in the middle, number 27, Jack Simpson from the Rochdale Lacrosse Club.
The Australians are putting a ride on, and of course the extra man advantage in coming up, although they're coming up very slow, belongs to England with the goaltender. They're getting their people into position. The last time, of course, it resulted in a fine shot by Danny Rodden from the pass up from the goaltender. They're going to play a very deliberate style of offense here, knowing that they can't outgun the Australians in a wide-out run-and-shoot type game.
Sean Moran passes ahead to number 17 for the English. That's Rick Summers. Summers passes off to Hodkin, who in turn puts it on the far side to Simpson. Goes back out on top. That's Bancroft with the ball. Number 11 in the middle, Tarpey. Tarpey on the far side, and the English looking for that good shot. There's no time limit on the possession. They can wait as long as they want to get the shot off. Switching hands on the stick is Tarpey trying to move inside. He's forced in behind the net. His pass goes astray and out of bounds, so the possession will go over to Australia. Now there's the difference. On a pass, if the ball goes out of bounds, it's a change of possession. On a shot, it goes to the team closest to the ball when it goes out of bounds, which, as we mentioned, is usually the attacking team.
The Australians will try to spread out the English defense, try to tire them out. Probably will take a little more time before they get their shot away, because they like to tire down that defense and stay on the attack as long as possible. The other night against England, at one time they kept the ball for some 10 minutes, and that really was the turning point of the game, as the English defenders got quite tired and never really got back into it.
We played just over 5 minutes in the opening quarter, just under 20 minutes remaining. The clock will run straight through, except for official timeouts or team timeouts, which are called by the officials. One of the other time things or time factors in the game is when the goaltender takes possession in his crease, he's got 4 seconds to either get rid of the ball or get out of his crease. And if he gets out of his crease, he can't go back into it, or it will be a change of possession again. We saw that called in the game between Australia and Canada the other night. Pass from Condren up the middle, long pass, and the English move into the attack zone again. The Australian long sticks riding very effectively. They've only allowed the 1 shot, and even that one bounced wide of the net. Number 24 for Australia, David Robinson, staying on his man like glue, forces him to cough up the ball. It goes to the goaltender, Freeman. He gets it ahead very quickly, and in the transition game, the Australians break out in a hurry. Coming down the middle and passing off to Cann was Mounsey, back over on the far side, and in behind the net again. The Australians looking in the middle. They've got a man, takes the shot, good save by Condren. The Australians regain possession. They're forced back outside that restraining line. So now the English doing some good riding in the neutral zone. There's a change of players for Australia. Coming into the game, number 26, Jeff Campbell. He replaces Ken Nichols. You can change at any time. The clock does not stop. The only stipulation is that you have to check in with the chief bench official, who tonight is Joe Murray of Canada. He's down in front of the timers bench. Shot by Cann. Good save by Condren once more, but he loses the ball. Cann in front. He lost it. So the Australians trying to work it in for the shot again. But behind the net is Kennedy. Kennedy tries to get it back out on top. He does to Furtado. Furtado back in behind to Kennedy. For Cann in front. Good checking on the play. Good defense by Sean Moran. And the English start back.
The English have been very strong in the defense, particularly goaltender Condren. And that's kept them in here, although the Australians have dominated in the territorial war out there so far.
As Jim mentioned off the top of the show, possession is such a big thing in this game. If you win face-offs and gain possession, you can monopolize the ball, and if you've got the ball, it's a little tough for the other team to score. So the key to this game is initially winning face-offs, much as it is in hockey. And after that, you just have to work your way in for the good shot, and you have an unlimited amount of time to do it.
So far, the Australians have had much better control of the ball in the offensive end. Now England's going on a one-on-one.
Good defense again by number 23 of Australia, Mark Haddad. Got a stick up on the shot. The English get it back, though. And again, Haddad stepping in front of his man. That was David Robinson who got a leg out. It looks like we have a penalty on the play. It's called a trip. And we'll see what the length of the penalty is. I believe it was a 1-minute call. You heard the referee. So England will have the man advantage. Now, if they get the goal here, Jim, they could very likely, if they get a goal with a man advantage, they could very likely spend one of their timeouts to stop the clock and get another chance with the man advantage.
That can be used very effectively.
Just over 16 minutes remaining in the opening quarter. Bronze medal match of the 1986 World Lacrosse Championships coming to you from Varsity Stadium in Toronto. And a goal by England. Long shot taken by Mark Hodkin from well out. But I don't believe that Bruce Freeman saw it until the last moment.
I think he was screened. But I'll tell you, England's got to be feeling pretty good right now because they've got a 1-1 tie. They've been outplayed a little bit, but there's the shot. Very fine, high-power shot from up on the top.
Hodkin, the goal scorer. Gosney set it up. That's Keith Gosney. His brother Malcolm also plays for this English team. So it's 1-1 after just under 5 minutes of the opening quarter. The English trying to move in once again, but you may have found some... The English get possession back again. I thought they were going to call them on a hand violation, but they did not.
I think the Australian attack man moved over that line to cause the offside.
The English setting up once more in the Australian zone. You'll see how effective the defenders can be with those long sticks. It's very good for checking, not so good for ball handling. A little awkward. That's why you don't see the long sticks roaming downfield too often, although the better teams, the Canadians and the Americans, use it quite frequently. They'll get one of the long sticks involved in the attack. Good defense that time by number 6 of Australia, Steve Mounsey, and he causes the turnover. Starting back down for the Australians, number 9, Gord Purdie. Shot in the middle by Purdie, the give and go. He worked it very well with Kennedy, but good defense on the play by England.
And once again, Condren comes up very strong for the English. You know, often a hot goaltender, can be the decisive factor in the early going here with the Australians having the greater number of shots. Condren's just been outstanding, and it's going to give some confidence to this underdog English team who have never gone home with a medal in the 5 games so far. And if they get up the way they did against the Canadians, you can look for a real battle here tonight, as it is right now in this 1-1 tie.
The game on Tuesday night between Canada and Australia, undoubtedly the best game of the tournament so far. 17-14 for Canada. That's what earned them their way into the gold medal game against the United States. It was either them or Australia, kind of a winner-take-all situation, and the Canadians won it. So the Australians, having to content themselves with playing for the bronze medal here this evening, And they don't want to go home without a medal because they're hosting the World Lacrosse Championships 4 years from now. And they want to have something to show for this trip to Canada.
Well, Steve, they really feel they are at least the second-best team, although they couldn't prove it on the play that Canada in the game the other night. So the Australians may be having a hard time getting up for this one as the English keep them at bay in a 1-1 tie. There should have been much more scoring than there has been so far.
There you see one of the long sticks involved in the attack, and he set up the goal by number 14, Jeff Kennedy. That was Peter Morley down there involved in the attack, and not very often you see one of them get down there. Here's a look at the goal once again. You'll see the pass to Kennedy in front. He makes the nice move on Condren, tucks it in the far side, and it's 2-1 for Australia. There's the shot from a different angle.
Well, with that large net, once you get in on the crease, the goaltender either has to guess. He's almost helpless in there, and Kennedy really had no trouble at all putting it to one side. Once again, the Australians dominate on that face-off, and the understudy, Tillotson, who's learned from the master, comes up with the draw. So the Australians have a great advantage on winning the majority of face-offs.
Now we're going to have a penalty called against England that time. That'll be against Jeff Mauchley. He got his stick around on Peter Cann, and I think he'll be going off for 1 minute.
That's one of those good penalties, because if Cann broke through, he would have been right in the hole or the slot area and would have had an easy chance to put one away. At least now they have a chance to come up and defend and get into their 1-2-2 defense.
The call was slashing, and Mauchley is off for a minute, so the Australians will work the power play. This is a time, an opportunity for them to put a little daylight between themselves and the English.
The Australians play that ball much better than the English and moving it around, not only when on the odd man.
Watch the move into the slot. There goes Kennedy in the middle. Made a great move on the defender, who's still down on the field, and another great move on Condren for his second goal of the night. Jeff Kennedy makes it 3-1 Australia, and they have now...
Well, if we watch here, Condren comes out of the crease. He probably should have stayed in. He would have had a much better chance.
Now there's a bit of an oddity. England has called the timeout, Jim. Here's another look at the goal now, and you'll see the moves by Kennedy. Now England called the timeout. That stops the clock, and that's going to give Australia another opportunity on the power play. So that's a bit surprising. The man does not come back after the goal is scored.
It is quite surprising, and the only thing that I can guess is that the head coach for England, Bardsley, is probably going to keep his men in the game here by trying to get them a little bit calm, and they want to correct that problem they're having on that left side with Kennedy picking up his 3 goals.
John Bardsley, you hear him talking there in the middle of that huddle. He's the English coach.
Just go in, ready?
And the assistant coaches for England. There's Bardsley right now. The assistant coaches for England, Brian Costello and Joe Gold, who's an American. He's been over with the English team for a couple of years now.
Well, the way they played Canada in the opening game for them in this tournament, it looked like Gold's 2-year stint in England. They looked like the best prepared English team that we've seen in the World Championships, but something happened when they came out against the Aussies and the United States. They did not play well. They have played well here, despite the fact they're down 3-1.
Tillotson in the face-off area again, and once again for England it'll be Everard. Everard wins at that time, but the Australians get possession. And starting out will be number 25, Tony Martella. Martella moves into the attack zone, slows it down and sets up once more. Back outside the restraining line. The Australians not in any hurry. They already lead 3-1. The penalty has expired, so the English are back at full strength.
I think the Aussies will be content to play a real waiting, patient offensive game here.
Good shot from well out taken by Nichols, but an equally good save by Condren. He had it labeled all the way. The English move to the attack.
They do well to hang on to the ball for a little while and get things calmed down and get control of their offense. And don't hurry it, because the transition game has been in favor of the Aussies. The English have been giving up that ball without a shot, and they have to get that offense to get a little bit relaxed out there. Therefore, they probably should hold on to it a while and move it around and just find out what this Australian defense is all about before they press in for their goals. So far, their shots on goal, the couple they've had, have come off of basically a one-on-one where they've drawn all the offensive men to one side with their defenders and gone one-on-one on the isolated man.
The other thing to consider, too, is that the English are still close. It's only a 3-1 game with already 15 minutes gone in the opening quarter, about 10 remaining now, just under 10. If they keep it close, it's going to start to rattle the Australians eventually. So if they work for the good shot, now they've got it out in front. Good move, and a great save by Freeman. What a move in front by big number 33, Jamie Symington, a 22-year-old from Poynton. He just undressed that Australian defender. Back shot now and bounces just over the crossbar. And now the Australians move to the attack.
Well, the English came up with 3 shots. One was a great shot, requiring a tremendous save by Freeman, the Australian goaltender.
That was Symington who made that big move in front. And he really undressed the Australian defender, number 2, Cliff Jennings. He made the fake to one side and backed around him the other way to get the good shot on Freeman, and Freeman came up with an excellent save. You see them constantly prodding the defenders with that stick. Now the Australians with the pass, it goes past Kennedy, but he gets it before it goes over the end line, so the Australians retain possession. Into the middle now. The pass goes astray, and it's a loose ball picked up by number 6, Keith Gosnay. Now the Australians, or the English rather, picking up the loose ball. And in behind his own net is Underwood. Underwood moves it upfield.
That's by far the best clear by the English so far as they create the odd man as they come down.
Good shot high over the shoulder of Freeman. Moving in for the shot from the short side was number 21, Danny Rodden. And we'll get another look at that on the replay, but not much chance for Freeman. The pass ahead by Hodkin, and watch Rodden move in. Look at that shot, upstairs, over the shoulder. In fact, if Freeman had gotten his head in there, it might have knocked it off.
Steve, that's probably one of the best goals we've seen England score in this tournament, and a fine breakout player on the transition. Their long sticks battling for that ball on the grass, coming up with it, and they move down that right side very quickly and creating the odd man on the Australian crease.
So a textbook example of how to come up with a goal in lacrosse. It starts with your defense, as is the case with almost any sport. The good defense means the good offense. The English moving to the attack again, and they have possession in the Australian zone, but a nifty bit of defensive stick work by Steve Mounsey. He gets possession for the Aussies, moves it out near midfield, and now the Aussies quickly to the attack. They make that transition game work very well. Cann to Kennedy. Now he'll slow it down. They were working for the quick shot but didn't get it. So now they'll slow it down and look for what they hope will be the sure shot. Now the good defense by England. Stealing the ball in behind his own net was Richie Bancroft. Now the English move to the attack, and you'll see a tripping call there. Number 22 of the Australians. Well, they call it checking from the rear. And that'll be a 30-second violation against Darren Gibson. You heard the official call it. He's off for 30 seconds, so that really is time for probably one good shot if they can work it in.
Well, the English are playing with great confidence here, with just down 3-2 and coming up with some good offense. Strong defense around that goal.
Good shot taken from the far side by Everhard. And once again, Freeman with the save. But the English will retain possession. They had the man closest to the end line when it went out of bounds. Bad pass that time. Now that's the kind of unforced error by Everhard that coaches hate to see. He had the man in the middle and just passed it so in such a manner that it wasn't even near the intended receiver of the pass. And the Australians almost got the ball back again.
That's one of the weak parts of the English game. They do not handle that ball and pass as well as any of the other 3 teams in this tournament. They sure have come up with a lot of adrenaline here tonight, though, and have played well in that department.
Everhard's shot attempt blocked by Jennings. The goaltender, Freeman, also over there. He's well out of the net, but there's nobody on the English side in the middle to pass to, so they have to slow it down once again. Simpson behind the net, looking out front. He has Roden on top. Roden now moves in behind. And again, they're going to take their time and wait for that good shot. Being forced outside this time is Elwood. Tries to pass it in the middle, but it was really not a good pass, not a high percentage pass. There were about 6 yellow jerseys around and 1 blue one. So the Australians move quickly to the attack. They cleared it very well once again. Kennedy, who really makes that offense tick for Australia, moves it out in front. The pass was right there for Gibson, but his shot went off the side of the net. Kennedy got it in behind again and sends it out front once more.
He had a bad bounce on that shot. He had all the time in the world and should have put it away. The Australians back into that very patient, deliberate, waiting for their men to come on the change of the lines, which, of course, you can change as many men as you want at any time. Here's the one-on-one on the dodge.
Good move in front, but a great save by Condren. Less than 5 minutes now remaining in the opening quarter. There are 4 25-minute quarters in this game. The international game a little different than the game they play in the United States, the American college game. This game is 25-minute quarters with no stop time. The college game is 15-minute quarters with stop time.
Probably comes out to pretty well the same amount of action or time out there. Those Australian long sticks have been playing extremely well in front of the net and also on the loose ball on the grass.
That's Mark Balinski carrying it into the offensive zone for the Australians.
The biggest advantage those long sticks have on both sides, of course, is to keep the dodger out as they're doing right now. They're keeping the attack man out and forcing him to make his play 15 to 20 feet out from the body instead of 3 or 4 feet. So it gives the man with a quick dodge or shift, it gives him a much better opportunity. And we've seen some strong defense. This 3-2 score is a very fine game, and particularly in the defensive ends. And both goaltenders have been strong. As a matter of fact, Freeman for Australia has set up a lot of their breakouts.
You'll see the vast majority of teams use man-to-man defense in this game the vast majority of times. You don't very often see a zone unless a team is short-handed. So you'll see one player leave the field for one of the teams, and the man who's covering him from the other team, especially with the English, will usually leave the field at the same time. They get their number before the game starts, and the coach says, that's the guy you stick with all night long. Stay with him when he goes to the washroom.
Here's an opportunity for England as they come up. And once again, the goaltender, Condren, was the man that created the odd man to get there clear. The Australians have been putting on a pretty good ride.
Now the Australians in the transition game again. They move it upfield very quickly. Good check by the English. And you know, Jim, you've been talking about the job the Australian defense has been doing. There's a good hit on the far side by number 9, Gord Purdie. But the English defense has played very well, too. Their long sticks have really stacked up that middle against the Australians.
I think the Australians are surprised. Although they have maybe dominated a little bit in the possession part of the game, they have not penetrated a lot. Kennedy's goals off that side, they seem to have that one blocked now. And Australia have got to do a lot of thinking that they're only up by the 1 goal on a team that they handled very easily the other night when they beat England 17-11.
And that's with just over a minute remaining in the opening quarter. So a 3-2 score at this stage, you would have to figure would be a morale boost to the English.
I would say if the English can stay within 1 or 2 going into the final quarter, this game could be decided on emotion alone.
What a pretty play. Kennedy once again setting it up, this time from out front of the net. He went to number 22, Darren Gibson, and we'll have another look at it here. Kennedy just put him in front. Gibson made a move. Here's the pass, Jim.
Well, the English defender there, he had his back turned on that pass, and that opened up the opportunity for Tillotson, for Gibson, to put it away into the net there wide open. That was a defensive error by England that opened up that scoring chance.
Really no chance at all for goaltender Petr Condren. When you get man-on-man like that, as Jim mentioned, it's like a soccer goalie trying to defend the goal in a penalty kick situation. It's almost impossible. The stick control that these players exhibit most of the time, they can tuck it in anywhere, and when you've got the one-on-one with a goalie, it's really a guessing situation.
Sean Moran comes up big for England on the long stick loose ball. And that's one face-off the Aussies didn't get, who have dominated all face-off situations pretty well during this entire series with every team, including the Americans.
We're now on officials' time. The time on the clock has expired. It's now officials' time, so it'll be a matter of what the official time really is when the buzzer will go. There it is now to end the opening quarter. And in something of a surprise, England is only trailing by 2 goals, 4-2 Australia after 25 minutes.
Well, I have to think that England feels a little better at this end of the quarter than maybe the Australians, despite the fact they're down 4-2.
You're watching the bronze medal match of the World Lacrosse Championship here on TSN. We're coming to you from Varsity Stadium in Toronto, and at the end of 1 quarter, it's Australia 4. After the first quarter, Australia leading England 4-2. Bronze medal match of the 1986 Field Lacrosse or World Lacrosse Championships, coming to you from Varsity Stadium in Toronto. Steve Cooney along with Jim Bishop, and in that first quarter, the English turned the ball over 8 times. Steve Mounsey of Australia, number 6, with a couple of nice steals. The Australians, on the other hand, turned it over only 4 times, and maybe that's the difference in the game. Twice as many turnovers, twice as much on the scoreboard.
That, along with the face-offs, has been the dominant factor, although England is still playing with lots of emotion and are very much still in this game, despite being outplayed by a little bit in that first quarter.
And that has to be a bit of a morale booster for the English, who are still looking for their first win in this tournament. This is the 5th World Lacrosse Championship. In the previous 4, the Americans have won 3 times. Canada has won once. That was back in 1978 in Stockport, England. And they defeated the Americans 17-16 in overtime in the championship game. That's the only game the Americans have ever lost since the World Championships began. So you get an idea just how dominant they are.
Well, that makes them pretty awesome. Incidentally, the Canadian attack coach, Stan Cockerton, scored the winning goal for Canada in double overtime in '78.
In the round robin of this tournament, the Americans beat Canada by a score of 22-11. And if that sounds like a fairly wide margin, I guess it is, but when you look back to '78 in the round robin, they beat the Canadians something like, if memory serves, 24-3.
Something in that area, 26-4, something like that.
And then the Canadians came back and won the championship game.
They won it on emotion, led by Carm Collins from Peterborough, Ontario. They played inspired, along with some great goaltending by Bob Flynn.
A lot of the Canadian players, as we see, play a bit scrambly in the English zone. The English now defending the south end of the stadium to screen right, and the Australians are defending the north end screen left. The Australians in the light or yellow uniforms with the green trim. And a nice steal in the offensive zone by number 5 of the English side, Terry Underwood. But then again, they turn the ball right back over with a bad pass. He tried to get it ahead to number 13, Dave Elwood, and it was just a bad pass.
That was one of the best turnovers that England forced, but unfortunately they couldn't contain the ball as they were trying to come up the field.
The English long sticks have been a major factor in this game, and there's another turnover. The English getting the break with the officials' change of possession, and now they just turn it back over to the Australians once more with the bad pass.
That's hurting them a lot, the turnovers, there's no question about it. Possession, that means so much. And the Australians, with a much more deliberate attack, they're patient out there. They take their time. They'll move it around. And fortunately, the English have come up pretty good on the defense, or this thing would have been wide open by now.
Nice play in behind the net. The shot taken eventually by number 7 of Australia, Graeme Fox. He gets the goal. The setup by Peter Brown. Here's a look at it on the replay, Jim.
And number 4, the English defender, got turned around, Mookley, and that allowed this fine quick stick goal by Fox.
So that makes it 5-2. We played just under 3 minutes here in the second quarter.
Now we'll watch this face-off coming up. You'll watch the middies on the restraining line on the side. Right now we're watching the draw men in there tight. They'll attempt to trap that ball and hold it. Now you'll see the shot from the side, the middies, as they'll move in to help their center man. The ball's left right there, and England almost came up with that face-off.
They do get possession finally. The midi wingers cannot move until the referee's whistle goes from that face-off. And the other players, the players in the defensive zone at each end, can't move until there's clear possession of the ball by one team or the other. So, again, if you see people standing around, they're standing around because they have to.
I think the English coaches told them to settle down here and go for, they're still going for the one-on-one. They're not moving that ball around. They're not hanging on to it for very much possession. And I think that's kind of playing into the Australian hands. They like to dominate the length of time that a team hangs on to that ball. And so far they have. And the English maybe have been forcing that shot just a little too early. Although they're still playing a very spirited game, they're only down 3.
Australian goalie Bruce Freeman takes the pass from long stick Steve Mounsey. Now on the far side, that's David Robinson, one of the other Australian long sticks.
Putting a 2-man ride in there. Now they're moving up the 3rd man, and Australia will probably break through here by moving it down the left side.
In a one-on-one situation, the way a team breaks through is the fact that they have 4 players in the defensive zone. The other team can only have 3 in there, so you always have a one-man advantage at least. And
the main purpose, Steve, on that ride, of course, is just to slow down the team coming out. You can't very often get the ball away from them except on a bad pass.
Kind of a hope pass into the middle by the Australians. Boy, look at that checking as they go towards the near sideline.
Now the Aussies had 2 men on the English defender and regained possession.
Another great play for an Australian goal. That was Purdie who pulled the trigger, and it was set up this time by Fox. He was the trigger man last time. That makes it 6-2, but watch the pass by Fox right there.
Well, he got in the clear primarily because of a mistake made, I believe, by Symington. Purdie putting that one away after Symington was going to make a change and was headed for the bench, or headed for the time area. And at that moment, of course, the Australians moved in and created the odd man play. Once again on the face-off, you'll watch those middies come on the restraining line to help out to get that possession at center.
Now ready.
That's Butkiewicz gaining possession on the draw. The Australians now with their biggest lead of the game. 4 goals up. They lead it 6-2 with 19 minutes remaining in the second quarter of this bronze medal match of the 1986 World Lacrosse Championship. We're coming to you from Varsity Stadium in Toronto, set right in the heart of the beautiful University of Toronto campus. This is really one of the picture stadiums in all of Canada, if not all of North America. It's just a nice setting to watch a game in.
The Australians moving in. Another fine shot on the one-on-one. Number 12 for Australia, Furtado.
So that makes it 7-2, and here's another look at it on the replay. Good move by Furtado. Then he switches hands, moves in for the shot. He bounces it by Condren.
And Underwood didn't play that one too well. England tiring now because they've been on defense for so much of this first half. So the Australian game plan starting to take shape the same as it did the other night, where they retain the possession off the face-off. They go down, they play a very patient attack, and the English defense, who were very aggressive in the first 30 to 35 minutes, are starting to get a little tired out there as this game progresses.
Now the English move to the attack, setting it up near the net. What a hit! And that was a combination between number 21 Richard Tillotson, number 18 Rod Ansell, and they just decked England's number 24 Pat Moore. I'm surprised he got up as fast as he did.
Now we'll have to see whether England changes any of their style and how they're going on the attack. It looks like they might be going for another isolated as they play from up top. And on that pass, it was not a shot on goal. So once again, England give up the ball without a serious shot on the net. Their game is starting to fall apart a little bit in that area. And obviously, they're playing into the hands of the Australians, who once again have possession and will take their time and wait for that good shot opportunity or a defensive mistake.
A reminder to our viewers that TSN will be carrying the gold medal final of these 1986 World Lacrosse Championships Saturday evening beginning at 7:30 Eastern Time. That's the United States against Canada. The United States, the defending champions. They won it in 1982 in Maryland. Canada winning in 78 in Stockport, England. Another goal by the Australians, Ray Duthy.
And again, England's number 4, Mookley, didn't make a move on his man as you'll watch him come out around the crease. And I would have to think that the goaltender, Condren, Here's the move. There's no defender in there doing the job. As you can see, the man in all alone. And Condon, who came up so big for the first part of this game, must be ready to sue for non-support out there because he has been left a lot on his own. Of course, that game, as you mentioned, Saturday night, the championship game between the United States and Canada, it should be a dandy. If Canada can come up with the emotional peak that they had against the Australians in their win the other night, we know the Americans are going to be there with the youngest team in the tournament, with the number of players they have to pick from their NCAA and their club teams, and they're fired up to try to win their 4th out of 5 World Championships. It could be a great game come Saturday night on TSN.
At 7:30 Eastern Time. You can watch it right here. The English gained possession from the draw that time. And that's a rarity with Butkiewicz in the face-off area for the Australians.
The odd thing, and all the countries admitted that he has dominated face-offs now for 4 World Championships. Once again, the English move down. Within a minute, they've given up the ball on a very weak shot, and the Australians come back. And if the English hope to get back in this, they're going to have to change that pattern. They're going to have to go down there and hang on for possession and move it around and be patient and peck away at that lead and not try to get it quickly. That is not their style, and they're not going to win if they keep playing.
They trail now by a score of 8-2 with less than 15 minutes to play in the second quarter. It was 4-2 going into this quarter. Good save by Condren off the shot by Gibson.
Gibson on a great dodge on the defense. Once again caught the English defense not using the long stick in there, and the English defender not moving laterally to cover his man.
Now, you've got to watch right here to get an idea why the Australians get the edge in this game that they do. Watch the defense ride their man as the English try to bring it out of their defensive zone and move to the attack. You know, you can say that the English transition game isn't as good as the Australian. Part of the reason it isn't as good is the Australians won't let it be. There's a length of the field pass by Condren. He tried to get it down to Rodden, but the Australian defender got in front of him and screened him from seeing the ball. So Thomas Hardy gets the ball back for Australia on the change of possession, and they start out once more.
That's close to a real hope pass, that is, and you can't build an offense around that type of long ball passing. But from Condren's point of view, nothing else is happening out there, and the ride was on, and there was no Aussie open or English player open in the defensive zone, so he went for the long ball, and it's very difficult to connect on one that long.
Condren will start it out of the English zone. You'll very often hear the goaltenders barking out signals to their defense.
Oh, very effective ride one more time as the Australians move in and force the bad pass by covering everybody that's open. And Condon trying to make the long pass up to catch the one man he might have got it to. And as a goaltender, not passing as accurately as a forward, didn't have a chance.
Well, you'll see a penalty called there. It'll be on number 15 of the English side. That's Richie Bancroft. He almost bulldogged the man on the way through.
Well, I think the English defense is just plain tired. They've been out there. They're going with only 4 defenders. They do get a 5th man in there from time to time. And the Australians, of course, are changing their midfield. And they're keeping the ball down here a lot and forcing that defense to continually move around.
The penalty was actually against number 27, Jack Simpson. In any case, the Australians now with the man advantage. They're trying to get possession of the ball deep in the English zone, but the English long sticks come up with it. That's number 3, Paul Starrett. Nice move. Now he's got time to get it over onto the far side to Moran. Now here's where the Australian game is so effective against this English side. They just don't let them get set up.
Down on me.
Australians are very, very aggressive here in the second quarter, and they can sense that 8-2 lead, and they just want to keep building on it.
Well, they're not going to take any chances right now. They obviously feel that the English cannot come back from a 6-goal deficit. I don't know if that's a good feeling to have, because we saw the Canadians come back against the Australians the other night from a 5-goal deficit. At one stretch, they outscored the Australians 13-2.
Well, that was an amazing comeback against a fine side here that the Australians have. But I don't think the English have the offense to do it. And they certainly haven't shown any of the patience that's required to set up those plays to create the scoring opportunities. That was a telegraph pass all the way as he drew 3 Aussie defenders. A very weak pass over the opposite side of the crease, which was easily picked off by the goaltender.
Freeman, as you mentioned, knew that was coming, and he just stood there waiting for it. Now the Aussies move to the attack.
The Australians are not only playing with all the confidence to give them that 8-2, they're also playing very aggressive, particularly defensively, including their midfielders.
Well, all facets of their game, after the early stages of that first quarter when they looked to be a little lethargic, all phases of their game are working well now. The clear is working well. They're riding their men very well. And they're moving the ball offensively very well.
They're probably into the game. They were a little bit of shock after being beat by the Canadians, and it took them a little while to really get into it. And I think they're into this game now and going for the bronze very strongly. That was a pretty goal.
What a play. Goal was scored by England to make it 8-3. That was number 26, Jeff Campbell. You see the setup on the far side. Look at that pass. Nice move in front by Campbell, up over the top. Freeman, little chance with a one-on-one situation.
Little pivot there around Haddad, but Haddad had no chance, and of course the goaltender Freeman even less. That came at a very good time for the English because they worked hard to get the loose ball, and they got it out into the hole, and it was a very nice goal.
And I identified the scorer as Jeff Campbell. Of course, that's number 26 for the Australian team. The goal scorer was Andy Hiller from the Stockport Lacrosse Club, a 27-year-old attacker. Face-off control by the Australians once more. That's Tillotson. Big hit on the play, but the Australians maintained possession. I'll tell you, Paul Scarrett came out like a steamroller there. Tillotson with his head down, and he's not going to do that too often.
I would think the English will attempt to rough up that centerman no matter which one it is that's in there, Tillotson or Butkiewicz. They have to get in there fast in the midfield and try to take away the advantage that the centermen have had on an easy pickup.
The Australians on the attack. 8-3 the score. Less than 9 minutes remaining in the second quarter. This is the bronze medal match of the 1986 World Lacrosse Championship, coming to you on TSN from Varsity Stadium in Toronto. Timeout has been called by Australia. And I'm not sure at this stage what Coach Denis Traynor wants to accomplish.
Well, I would have to think that Australia now might have called that. Just they want to get back in there. They know that England got the 1 goal. They don't want to get England started again. And now we're going to listen to that English coach.
John Bardsley, the head coach for England.
We're losing the ball in the midfield area and allowing pressure on our defense. So we've got to get the ground ball. That's what it's down to every single time. When the ball goes on the floor, they're picking it up.
We can go, boys.
Come on,
let's
pump
pump
it
more
in.
commitment.
Come on,
England. Come on, boys. Pump it out.
In the middle will work. We stopped using it. There was only one there that time.
Come on, get the clear sorted out.
Defense. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Defense. Come on, England. Go.
Well, he said exactly what we were talking about a moment ago. He says, get the clear sorted out. They are not moving into the attack as well as the Australians are. And he said when the ball's on the ground, the Australians are winning all the loose balls. And that's what's the major difference in the game so far. The Australians handle the ball, or have been handling the ball, much better than the English have. As a result, the English are having trouble with the clear. And as a result, the Australians keep getting chances on goal after unforced errors.
The tactical game is something that England should be able to play well. They don't have as good a stick, but they should be able to break those rides much better than they have. The English defense has picked up a little after that goal, though, and have played much stronger. This is a game, because of the length of it, 100 minutes. It has its peaks and valleys for both teams. Australia, of course, have been up most of the time. England have been down and up. And, of course, they've got to come back now and hope to pick up a couple of goals.
Good defense by number 33 of the English team, Jamie Symington, a young 22-year-old from Poynton.
That's a difficult check over the shoulder, over the head, and force that turnover on the Australians.
It's a difficult check to accomplish without being called for it. Of course, when you're as tall as Symington is, it makes it a little easier.
Now, once again, we'll see whether England decides to be a little bit patient and take their time and move that ball around and gain some confidence in the attacking zone. Up till now in the game, they've been forcing the play.
One of the reasons that the English don't handle the ball perhaps as well as some of the other teams, and there's another unforced error. That time it was not the fault of the passer, but the guy who the pass was intended for. It looked like Paul Collier slipped and fell just as it was coming his way. But the Canadians, for example, have played box lacrosse for so many years. Their ball handling skills are very polished. They're very good in tight situations, especially in the attack zone. The English have never had the advantage of playing the box game, and they haven't played the field game as long or as extensively as the Americans or the Australians have.
And I think that's one of the major keys. And as a matter of fact, right now, I would have to say the Americans have as fine as sticks as the Canadians do. That's no longer a big advantage for Canada there. But Canada playing in tight around the goal area, as we'll see on Saturday night, are probably one of the most effective teams, and the Americans are right there with them. The Americans have some big advantages on defense.
A lot of Canadian box lacrosse players end up going to American colleges on scholarships to play the field game. Canada's base of field players has grown substantially since '78 especially, but even before that, because the American colleges started recruiting Canadian box players to go down and play out scholarships at some of the better-known lacrosse schools in the northeastern states.
I think there's somewhat in the mid-20s down there now. There's some 23 or 24 Canadians at major American colleges. I think that's going to continue to increase. In Canada, the high school field program is growing very rapidly. It's growing right across the country. Used to be just Ontario and British Columbia, but we're seeing a very strong growth now in the field game at the club level, and now also beginning in the school level out on the prairies where box lacrosse never did take hold. Out in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta, we're seeing a great development of the game out there.
The Australians play almost exclusively at the club level. They have school programs, but nothing to the extent that the Americans do. Here in Canada, it's still primarily at the club level, although there are a few universities starting to play the field game now. But the Australians, all of the players on the Australian roster come from club teams. And that the same applies to the English, except for one player from Sheffield University, and that's a rarity.
Well, we're watching the English finally decide to take their time out here on the offense. They've got lots of time. They're down 5 goals, but that's not a lot in this game, providing that they don't keep turning the ball over.
Less than 4 minutes remaining. Second quarter, 8-3, Australia over England, the bronze medal match of the 1986 World Lacrosse Championships.
That was a fine example by the Australian defender, number 23, Haddad, using that long stick on poking and finally having the English attacker give up the ball.
The English long stick setting up now. The Australians working their way outside. Now we'll have a player change as they maintain possession in the attack zone. Coming into the game, Ray Duthy, and he's an attack specialist, so that's why they've moved him in right now. I think the Australians would like to put a little more daylight between themselves and the English before the half. 8-3 is a good lead, but they found out the other night 5 goals is by no means insurmountable. They had that much on the Canadians. Good defense again by Paul Scarrett, 26-year-old from the Cheadle Lacrosse Club. He's played well all game long, Jim. He's been a real mainstay amongst the English long sticks.
Well, now we're going to watch England one more time come down and see whether they stay in their deliberate attack.
Technical foul, 30 seconds. Pushing.
The Australians will be a man short for 30 seconds. A pushing call against number 26, Jeff Campbell. So that'll give the English a big chance in the waning minutes of this first half to close the gap a little more. They're down by 5. Now they're trying to work it around the outside. Nice move in front. Good save on the play by Freeman and his defense. Another shot and another save by Freeman, that time with the stick. Shot was taken by Symington.
So Freeman has come up very big the few times that the English have got in there. He certainly played the pipe well on that shot from the short side.
The one thing you don't see the English trying very much, in fact, I don't think they've tried it at all, is that cross-cage pass in close. The Australians do it all the time when they're down in the attack zone.
That could be from a lack of confidence and also maybe the way the Australian offense is set up.
There's Symington again, tries to go up top that time. And once again, Freeman knew he didn't have anywhere to go, so he just got that stick up in front of him. And there's no way you're going to, it doesn't matter how tall you are, when that thing sticks about 9 feet up in the air and you're going to try and get over it, it just can't be done. Unless you're John Grant. Grant, of course, the big 6'6" attacker with the Canadian team. When he holds that stick up in the air, he reaches to about 12 feet, I think.
Well, he got 2 big goals off of that very factor the other night when he was in the slot area. And late in the game when Canada came up with...
attacker with the Canadian team. When he holds that stick up in the air, he reaches to about 12 feet, I think.
Well, he got 2 big goals off of that very factor the other night when he was in the slot area. And late in the game when Canada came up with 3 or 4 goals in a row, 2 of them were by John Grant right on the crease and the backhand shot.
And he set up 2 of the others.
And he set up 2 of the others. A 36-year-old man, probably in his last World Championship, just had a very exciting last quarter and was a key factor in the Canadian win.
There's another turnover, that time Petr Condren, the goaltender, trying to pass on the far side to Collins, and it was nowhere near him. So the English turn it over with less than a minute to go in the opening half. And that could be a real killer, because if the Australians turn this into a goal, the deficit grows even larger. And psychologically, going into the dressing room in that sort of situation. This time there'll be a call on Condren. He got the arm up and the stick high on Australia's number 9, Gord Purdie. 32nd.
England, they said a technical foul. 30 seconds for holding.
30-second holding call against Condren, and we've had a timeout called, so let's go into the Australian huddle and listen to Coach Denis Traynor.
Touchy on this side?
And a cut down the pipe from the weak side where the cut comes from.
All right. Listen, we've been stuffing around for a fair bit of a while. You've got 28 seconds to work it around, and that all ends up with you, doesn't it? No, we'll just see what happens, okay. With Duthy.
Clock's not on the field, though.
You just come up a bit. Will be. Make the pass. All right, okay. It's only a 30-second. You know, hey, Joff, one around. On the field. One around.
Come on, we've got to have it.
One around.
All right.
Goes clockwise.
It's finished, Carl.
So you're the
As an example of what we've been talking about, we've just been given the latest from statistician Gord Cutler on the turnovers in this game. The Australians have turned the ball over 7 times, which maybe is more than usual for them, but the English have turned it over 12 times. That's a difference of 5, and the goal difference is also 5. Now, I'm not going to say that figures exactly, but it's a good indicator of why they trail by 5 goals.
I'd have to say the English have beaten themselves more than the Australians have, although the Australians have played a very fine first half.
But this is not the sharpest we've seen the Australians in this tournament, which leads you to believe that because of the disappointment of losing that game to Canada the other night, they may have been ripe for the picking this evening if the English came out a little sharper themselves.
I think England came up well on the defense, but they just don't have that offense. There's a fine quick stick goal from behind, scored by Duthy.
And that comes just as the clock expires. And there goes the horn to end the first half. Here's a replay of that goal now. That's Petr Brown moving it into the middle. And the pass comes back out on top to Ray Duthy, and he makes no mistake about it. He puts it by Condren to give the Australians a 9-3 lead at the end of the first half.
We don't want to be too hard on Mookley there, but he's had 3 goals scored where in a position on the field there where he could have got in had he reacted a little bit quicker.
So at the end of the first half of play, it's Australia 9, England 3 in the bronze medal match of the 1986 World Lacrosse Championships. We're coming to you on TSN from Varsity Stadium in Toronto, and we'll be back after this. Well, we're back at Varsity Stadium in Toronto. It's halftime, and it's Australia leading England by a score of 9-3 in this bronze medal match. Of course, the crowd maybe not as big as organizers had hoped this evening, and a large part of that is due to the fact that Canada is not in this game. Canada is glad they're not in this game. They'll be playing in the gold medal match. That'll be seen on TSN Saturday night beginning at 7:30 Eastern Time. The coach of the Canadian team has joined us now, Bob Allen. You've been through this before. You were in Stockport when the Canadians won the championship in '78. You were also in Maryland when you didn't win in '82. Now you have a chance to maybe get a little bit of that back again. You weren't happy with the way things went in '82.
No, I thought about that coming into this game tonight. I know exactly how the Australians feel. It's pretty hard to get up for a game for the bronze medal when you know that you maybe should have had a shot at the gold title. And they're apt to be down tonight, but they're playing much better than we played in '82 when we were in this similar situation. England took us to overtime in that particular game, but I'm just glad that we're not out there tonight, and that we'll be out there tomorrow night trying for the gold medal.
Now, obviously, the Americans once again have to be favored going into the game. They always are at the World Championship. They've only ever lost 1 game since it all started. That was when you beat them in the final in '78. What is going to be the key for you to beat these guys? Because obviously it can be done. You did it before.
Well, in the first game, they exerted extreme pressure on us, and I think our fellas have to react a little more positively to that pressure and try to turn it into an advantage for us. They came at us 1, 2, 3 at a time occasionally, and the ball carrier was not able to find an open man. And if he had been in those situations, we could have had an odd situation and capitalized on that. We have to retain possession of the ball for a little bit longer than we have in the other games. We had pretty fair success against the United States in the face-offs. We beat them 19-17, and that's to our advantage if we can do that again. And of course, we have to play extremely strong defense because they don't have many weak links as far as their shooters are concerned. Ted Sawicki's been playing extremely well for us in goal, and had an excellent game against the United States. Unfortunately, he was alone in many instances, and I just hope he can come up with another one like that tomorrow night.
What about the injury situation? I know Bob Wasson was injured in the game against Australia. Will he be back, or will you be losing him for that key match?
We'll be making decisions regarding injuries tomorrow, but we really don't want to discuss anything like that until tomorrow.
All right. One of the other areas where the Canadians used to dominate was in ball handling, and in talking to Jim Bishop during this telecast, he believes the Americans have closed the gap, if not drawn even in that regard. They handle the ball equally as well, perhaps, as the Canadians do now. So there's got to be another area where you look at as a chance to dominate.
Well, Jim and I had a conversation about this recently, and I really don't think we have many advantages anymore. I think we have to work very, very hard to defeat them. We try to select the best athletes we can, the ones with the good stick skills, the ones who have a lot of courage, and the ones who can react to unsettled situations. But he's right in saying that old advantage is gone. I think with the introduction of the new plastic stick, they became better because the old wide wooden field stick was not a good stick to use to control the ball. And I think when the Professional Box League took place in the States in 1974 and 75, a lot of the field players watched a lot of those games, and some of them even took part as players, and they saw just what these fellas could do with the sticks, and they started to copy them, and now the youngsters are all doing it down there, and there are some excellent stick handlers. Generally, though, even though they do catch and throw with both hands, they are predominantly one hand more than the other, and I think our fellas are starting to pick that up as well.
What has been the most pleasant surprise in the tournament so far for you? From the Canadian standpoint, anybody that sticks out in your mind is maybe doing a little more than you thought they could or would?
Not really. I think that we still really haven't peaked, and I think we're looking for other players to really come to the top. The ones we've counted on doing well have finally made it. There are a few others that we want to get there as well, and if we can peak tomorrow night against the United States, I think we have an excellent opportunity of regaining the championship that we won in 1978.
Bobby Allen, thanks very much for joining us. Good luck in that game against the Americans, and I know that you'd like nothing better than to bring that trophy back home to Canada, or keep it here in Canada now that the tournament's here. We'll be back with second half action of this bronze medal game between Australia and England in just a moment. This is the World Lacrosse Championship coming to you from Toronto on TSN. There's the score at halftime in this bronze medal match at the 1986 World Lacrosse Championships, coming to you on TSN from Toronto at Varsity Stadium. Australia leading England by a count of 9-3. Box lacrosse is Canada's national game. That's a fact that very few people seem to know, but it is a fact. The field game started coming into prominence in 1978 when Canada won the World Championship in Stockport, and here's the status of our game right now. The Indians called it Begataway, and at one time the game had religious significance, as tribes used it as a means of training warriors. The white man first became interested around 1842, and in the next 100 years, the Canadian game evolved from an outdoor sport played by few to an indoor game played by many. It reached the zenith of its popularity with the formation of a professional league in 1974.
I recall during that period of time when the pro lacrosse was in existence, going around and scouting junior teams, and I've never seen such an exuberance of enthusiasm on the part of the youngsters, because they knew there was a bit of a carrot at the top, something for them to shoot for, and they were really looking forward to playing pro lacrosse, and there was no problem with numbers at that time.
Lacrosse has been trying to reestablish itself ever since the Pro League went belly up. For a long time, it looked as if nothing would work. But in 1978, a Canadian team won the World Field Lacrosse Championship, and all of a sudden, our national game was born again.
There's a lot of new activity in the prairie provinces. The Maritimes is not very active right now, and my position as the president of the Canadian Lacrosse Association, that's one of our main mandates, is to go in the Maritimes and try to get some more interest there. But in the BC and in the prairie provinces, Ontario and Quebec, it's very active, and things are looking very positive there.
From the standpoint of the CLA, the most important thing of all is that the game seems to have a future in Canada once again. It wasn't so long ago that that was very much in doubt. The only question is where the future of the game lies in this country, on the field or in the box.
It depends who you talk to. I've grown up in the box game, and I think that the box game is a much more fun game to play in many ways in the confining area. But you talk to players that just play exclusively field, and they think it's the best game they've ever played. I think the growth and the future of the game lies in the field, and I think it lies with the high schools and the younger kids, and then it'll grow into it won't be as much a spectator sport, but it'll be more of a participation sport, a lot like rugger or in some cases soccer at the amateur level.
The key to any future growth lacrosse may have lies in the development of the game at the grassroots level. If it takes hold there, anything is possible. And perhaps someday, our national sport may finally become national in scope. And there's not much doubt that if Canada should happen to win this 1986 World Lacrosse Championship, then the national sport will receive perhaps the biggest boost it could. There you have the score at halftime in the bronze medal match. Australia 9, England 3. We'll have the second half coming up for you in just a moment. We'll be back to Varsity Stadium after this. In the second half of this bronze medal game, Australia leading by a count of 9-3 over England. And let's take a look at some of the halftime statistics right now. Jim Bishop, really that kind of tells the story, especially the unforced errors and the turnovers.
That combination and the fact that when Australia does get the ball, they do hang on to it quite a bit longer means that they've dominated the amount of time during that first half of possession. And, of course, they are a better ball handling team and a better shooting team, so that means they should be ahead, and they are, 9-3.
Australians controlling from the face-off once more. That's John Butkiewicz, a veteran of 4 world championships.
And many, many hundred plays just like you saw him take there, where he dominates that face-off. Uncanny the way he can draw it out almost every time and get to the ball first.
34-year-old from the Williamstown Lacrosse Club.
At 34, I wouldn't be surprised to see him in as a specialist again 4 years hence down under when they play at home, that he's probably still going to be in the lineup.
What a play. What a play. That was Peter Morley setting it up on the far side. And I'll tell you, when they make passes like that, especially the cross-cage type we talked about before the intermission, here you see it now. Morley with the great pass over on the far side. No mistake about it. The goal scored by number 4, Peter Cann, another veteran, a 35-year-old from East Fremantle, and he's also in his 4th World Championship.
Peter Collins, number 22 for England, just broke his concentration there long enough, and he shouldn't, because Conn's one of the finest creasemen that's played the game. That's got to be a real demoralizer for England.
No possession!
You can hear the coaches and their assistants yelling at the official now.
Well, that's just, they'll have to face off over again because the ball went out of bounds
without possession.
Exactly.
That's Tillotson in the face-off area for Australia this time. They'll be trying to win the draw from England's number 33, Jamie Symington. And Symington seems to be really the key player on that English team. He's big and tall. He's good in the defensive area as well as the offensive area. And he's been down there a few times. They trade off and move him around quite freely. Big midfielder.
I think right now the Australians will be quite content to move it around, play their game, force the English to overcommit. Good check in there on the long stick.
I think that perhaps Australia's number 16, Dennis Newman, might disagree with the word good on the front of the check. He turned around shaking his head a little bit, perhaps getting the cobwebs out.
Well, Mookley, who had been burned about 4 times in that first half, did come up and moved over on the slide and was able to double team.
I guess this time he's making sure that he isn't going to get beat, at least not the way he did in the first half. One of the English long sticks now carrying it into the attack zone.
You can go,
number 3, Paul Skerritt.
One of you can go.
And we should point out, as the English move on to the attack once again, that England has made a goaltending change. Greg Story is in that now, replacing Peter Condren. And this is Story's first action of the tournament.
I don't think it's so much meaning that England has given up on this one, Steve. I think it's just that they feel they owe the young goaltender an opportunity to get in there and see some of the action in this World's Championship. Condren has been a key man for them throughout the series. They're in serious trouble of losing this one 10-3, so they've now brought in Greg Story.
There's that time there was a call. I'm not sure if it'll be a high stick or a slash, but England's number 26 is going to go off. That's Andy Hiller rather.
Cosney came over there on the slide and helped out to double team to force the turnover.
It's a 1-minute call against Andy Hiller for slashing.
It was accidental up on the helmet, but it has to be called, of course. This is an interesting defense in there right now. Now they moved into a 2-1-2, which is the standard man-down defense.
Good save by Story. Now you see him move out of that crease area. He's only allowed in there for 4 seconds. And once he's out with possession of the ball, he can't go back in.
One on a slash.
A 1-minute penalty to Australia's number 16, Dennis Newman. It'll also be a slashing call.
Australia.
Sorry, that's number 15, Chris Hockey. So each team is short a man at this stage. We have just under 20 minutes remaining to play in the third quarter. Bronze medal match. 1986 World Lacrosse Championship.
England are now a man up. They got their man out of the penalty area, and they'll go for the odd man play here and attempt to get a good one away.
Good pass and off the post. Nice setup that time. The pass went from number 13, Dave Elwood, over on the far side to Jack Simpson, and he rang one off the post. Goes into Simpson again, out into the middle. Possession stays with England because of a push.
This is a big opportunity for England to get back in, at least emotionally, into this game.
Nice pass in front, but that time, instead of getting a good shot off, Pat Moore, well, they've called a penalty on the goaltender now.
There's 2 turnovers in a row for England, and they better take the opportunity now and try to put one away.
Good checking by the Australian long sticks. It was not a penalty on the goaltender. It was just a line infraction. The goalie stepped in and out of the crease.
Australia still remaining very aggressive, and England also on the loose balls on the grass. Once again, Australia come up with the possession. They've settled right into their style where they spread out that English defense and move it around, and will go for the cut across pass or a cutter, or possibly isolate as they did early in this game when Kennedy picked up his 3. Of course, now time being in their favor, even though there's a lot of time left, they're content to take a lot of time on their shooting.
Peter Cann into the middle. Shot taken by Kennedy. Australia retains possession.
Excellent dodge out there by the Australians.
Great ball control, too. Even on the missed shots, they're deflecting it back to their own men.
Kennedy and Cann are a great combination out there, the way they move it to each other, no matter where they play, whether it's in the slot or off the crease. There's our one-on-one with some help coming over from the defense. There's going to be an infraction there. We haven't...
There'll be a slashing call.
I think as we watched the Australians pretty well dominate this game up till now, that they're a much better ball handling team than the English. There are, of course, they have a bigger player pool down under than the English have. They play, actually, their type of player is much more like the Canadian box player. They play that with that stick just about as well. Good defense.
Jeff Mookley is the English player penalized for the slash. He's sitting out right now. And the first Australian parry is turned aside by the English defense.
Traditionally, the Australians are known to be a more aggressive team than the English as well.
No mistake that time. Goal scored by Mark Balinski, number 20, with a good setup from in behind the net by who else? Jeff Kennedy. There you'll see it. Kennedy with the ball now in behind the English net on the replay. And there in front is Balinski. Very quickly one-times it. Past Greg Story. And it's 11-3, Australia leading.
Unlike the Americans, the Australians don't take many long shots. They play a real inside game, and with that great ball handling that they have and the good passing, they probably are as effective inside as the Canadians or the Americans, and not as effective from the outside as the Americans are on the long shot. The Americans are a very power shooting team, and we're going to see lots of that on Saturday night against the Canadians.
This is the bronze medal match of the 1986 World Lacrosse Championship, coming to you from Varsity Stadium in Toronto. Steve Cooney along with Jim Bishop. And we'll be back again Saturday night as Canada plays the United States in the gold medal match, 7:30 Eastern Time. We go on the air. And that should be exciting. It'll certainly be a big crowd draw here in Toronto with the Canadian team involved in the final. And with the proximity to the United States, it'll be a big draw for as far as the American fans are concerned as well.
I agree, Steve. I think you're going to see a lot of the Americans coming up from upstate New York, from Pennsylvania, from Long Island, down into Maryland. I'm going to see a lot come up for the weekend and for that championship game, which will be seen, of course, on Saturday night on TSN. The Australians are playing out there now like they're starting to really enjoy things. They can see that bronze medal coming up, and they're just settling into having a good night out there. A beautiful summer night here in Toronto at Varsity Stadium.
What a series of moves by Petr Cann in front. Once again, it was Kennedy who set him up. Kennedy, I'm not sure, we'd have to check to be sure, but he's got 7 points so far tonight. Check that, that's 6 points. 3 goals and 3 assists, and that time he set up Cann.
Petr Cann.
Here you'll see it on the replay. Look at the moves in front. Cann, a 35-year-old veteran from the East Fremantle Lacrosse Club.
Well, Scarrett and Gosney, the 2 English defenders, were only a few feet away, and they became spectators on that one. They were a little bit mesmerized by Cann and his faking and didn't make a move on his stick at all.
This telecast is protected by copyright and is intended solely for the non-commercial entertainment of our viewing audience. Any use, reproduction, or distribution in whole or in part of the pictures or descriptions herein contained without the expressed written consent of the Sports Network is strictly prohibited.
It's going to be a difficult job for the English to stay up to stay in this game. So far, they've made some mistakes out there, but they have stayed up emotionally, and we hope they stay in there because they still have a chance to put some points on the board. But the Australians don't show any letting up out there at all. As I say, they seem to be really enjoying it. Forget about what the score is. They're heavily favored to win the bronze, and they intend to do it.
This has not been an overly physical game, Jim, like the one we saw the other night between Canada and Australia with admission to the gold medal game riding at stake. They didn't hold anything back.
Well, I thought that was certainly the best game of this tournament, and we're looking for more of the same come Saturday night. The English, who came out very strong and played well in the first quarter, they seem to have lost their composure, and maybe they've even lost the interest in winning this one. They haven't let up entirely, but they certainly haven't played with the vigor that they showed either against Canada in their first game, which was by far their best, or in the first quarter here tonight. And, of course, the Australians, having given up only 3 goals, have played very well, and they've got excellent goaltending from Freeman, who's been a key man for them when the English did get in.
Well, this will give the Australians something to hold on to when they go home. The bronze medal, better, of course, than no medal at all. They'll be hosting the 1990 World Championships in Australia, and it would have been an awful thing for them to go home without anything to show for these 1986 championships.
And they're a very fine side. I mean, they've got all the mechanics out there that the Americans have and the Canadians have, and possibly they didn't play their best game against Canada, but Canada really forced a lot of things out there. They got very physical in the second half, and Canada played their game. Canada still made a lot of mistakes, and they're going to have to correct those, as mentioned by Bobby Allen, and they're going to have to come up with some better games from some of their players.
Nice move in front by Kennedy. Once again, This time he's the recipient of the fine pass from number 22, Darren Gibson. Kennedy with the nice moves before he tucks it by Greg Story. Here's another look at it.
And you notice the Australian pass. It's always right there on the stick. And, of course, that
Australian goal is third tonight, scored number 14, Jeff Kennedy.
Very similar to the 2 goals that he scored opening up this game tonight, and in which a goaltender has no chance coming around that crease on the left side.
Kennedy, another veteran of the international wars for Australia. He's 30 years old, from the East Fremantle Lacrosse Club. A teammate of Peter Conn's down there, which may explain why they work so well together up here.
Very good point.
Australia on the transition again. They've worked the clear to perfection this evening. Mind you, they've been allowed a lot of room to move around. The English defenders aren't riding nearly as effectively, nor are the English midfielders as the Australians are.
No, they're not playing close to their man. They're leaving them open so that they're passing that ball around like they own it, which they do. And then when the English do get it, they haven't been doing very much with it.
13-3 the score. Australia leading England in the bronze medal match of these 1986 World Lacrosse Championships. We've got less than 10 minutes to play in the 3rd quarter.
That was a good English clear against a good Australian ride, something they hadn't been doing earlier.
Nice move in front, but the shot went wide. Good give and go that time between Danny Roden and Pat Moore, but they came up empty. Once again, Freeman cut off the angle.
We saw a little more of that. The English would have more on the board. They haven't been getting in and making those moves across in front. He paid the price for it, Roden. He was knocked down, but a very fine play. But once again, I think Freeman has made all those big saves that he's had to.
Nice inside move that time by Gosney. But once again, it goes for naught. Symington picks it up. And behind the Australian net. Passes out to Gosney. That's Keith Gosney. Brother Malcolm, also a member of this English side. Shot taken. Freeman with the save. And once again, the Australians with the easy clear.
I would say Freeman plays the angles in that big net about as good as anybody I've seen. He's played extremely well tonight. And although they've dominated a lot of the territorial play, the English have had some excellent scoring chances and should have at least 3 or 4 more up there, except for the fine play of Freeman.
Well, as well as Peter Condren has played in this tournament, as well as Freeman has played tonight, I think the fans are in for a treat on Saturday when they get a look at Canada's Ted Sawicki, who may be the most involved goalie of them all.
And we're looking at a young man in the United States nets, Quinn, who's an excellent goaltender. We're just going to see an excellent matchup. If Canada comes up to the emotional game that they're capable of, it's going to be a fine match.
It took the Canadian side a little bit of time. In fact, it took them until the 3rd game to really get warmed up and get into this tournament. Like most Canadian teams playing internationally, they don't get together for very long before the tournaments actually begin, and that puts them at something of a disadvantage. The Australians are in the same situation. They only see each other for a couple of weeks before they leave for the World Championship. With countries as vast as these two are, it makes it difficult. The Americans, almost all the lacrosse played in the United States, is played in about a 400-mile corridor that sweeps on an arc through the Northeast and down the East Coast.
Actually, Steve, the English have an advantage as far as that's concerned. It's the only advantage they do have is that most of their players all come from a very confined area, but it doesn't make up for the fact they don't have the number of players, the player pool. They don't have the coaching pool. The Americans have the most number of coaches. Canada can put one top team, maybe a top team and a half on the field. The American second squad beat their championship team, or at least the team that's going for a championship here, beat them here this year. And they have 4 or 5 squads that could play very well in this tournament.
Nice inside move by Pat Moore. He sets it up for the shot, but Freeman is there once again to stop it in the Australian net. And the English get possession back again on the turnover. In the middle, pass from Tarpey, but it went astray.
Well, that's an example where they played so well to get the ball back, and inaccurate passing, wayward passing out there caused the turnover. So as hard as England works from time to time, it's little technical mistakes that have cost them all night, and it must be very frustrating and disheartening. Whereas the Australians do not have to work as hard because they play very well with the ball.
Nice long pass from Kennedy to Jennings. Australians move very quickly to the attack. Less than 5 minutes remaining now, third quarter, 13-3. Australia leading England, and this is the bronze medal final of these 1986 World Lacrosse Championships. Kennedy retains possession for the Aussies. He doesn't move around like a 30-year-old, Jim.
No, he certainly doesn't. I think he's and he's a great feed as well as a shooter.
Good play that time by England's number 13, Dave Elwood. Nice pass onto the far side. Good shot taken, but a great save by Freeman.
That's the old case. You can't throw it through him. You got to get it around him. And if he had been just a little more patient on that shot, Hiller could have put it in behind with the outrushing Freeman coming out of his net. And he played it just the way he thought. That was an automatic by Hiller. And Freeman charging the ball and was able to make the save. All he really had to do was hang on to it and drop it over him once the goaltender was out. Or Hodkin, I should say, taking that shot.
Nice play by Elwood to set it up, too. He ran the length of the field, evaded about half a dozen Australian checks, and there were some good ones thrown at him. You could hear the clank of those metal sticks as he was running up the field. They rang a few off his shoulders and off his own stick, but he maintained possession and got the feed over to Hiller, and Jennings was equal to the task. Off the side of the net that time. Shot taken by Malcolm Gosney.
You know, that fine breakout by the English, we were told before this championship series took place that we would see the English breaking out a lot in their transition game. We haven't seen it. That time we did, and it paid off in a very good opportunity. They do have the wheels and legs. They have a lot of fine young players out there. But maybe they're just a little farther behind than we'd like to think as far as some of the techniques and the strategies that they should be employing out there.
Well, we have a retaliation penalty that time. Number 9 for England, Malcolm Gosney, was being ridden very closely by Peter Morley, and he came around with the slash, caught him on the helmet, and the official right there made the call, so Gosney is off for a minute.
You might charge that one up to frustration when you're down 13-3 this late in the game. The English have played quite a bit better in this quarter. They've had the ball with more possession than they had in the first 2 quarters.
They just can't really put much of a dent in Freeman's armor. He's been outstanding. Kennedy on the far side. What a play once again. Kennedy sets it up for number 15, Chris Hockey. Goal stands there. I thought for a second there would be a penalty on the play as well against England, but there is not. So that makes it 14-3 with less than 2 minutes remaining. Here it is on the replay once more, and really no chance for Greg Story.
To our listeners out there and viewers, very much a box lacrosse style play that we see so often, and the Australians do it so well.
That's 9 points now in this game for Kennedy. 4 goals and 5 assists. The other night, 2 American players established a record for these World Championships. They had 6 goals apiece, Roddy Marino and Brendan Schneck, and that's never been done in international competition before. With a quarter still to play, it's quite possible that Jeff Kennedy could put himself into that elite company as well in this game, Jim. He scored 4 goals already and has 5 assists to go along with them.
And he's got lots of time left, and he's been playing well.
And the other night, it should be added. And there's Kennedy once more with goal number 5. That makes it 15-3. He is now 1 goal shy of the world record for an international competition, established just the other night when the United States beat England 32-8.
And they look so loose and relaxed out there, the Australians, and they're also playing aggressive. And they're not only going to win this game, they're going to play it the way they want all the way. And here we go again. There he is out in front, the little tap bounce shot there that would elude any goaltender in the game.
So, Greg Story is finding out what Peter Condren found out in the first half, that it's difficult to stop Jeff Kennedy either when he's setting goals up or scoring them himself. 5 goals, 5 assists for 10 points. In that American victory against England the other night, just to let you know what happens at a 32-8 game. And there's the setup that time by number 20, Mark Balinski. He put it into the middle to Chris Hockey. Hockey pulled the trigger. But in that game the other night, Roddy Marino of the United States just had a phenomenal outing. And he scored 6 goals, as did Brendan Schneck. That's the end of the third quarter. And the score is 16-3, Australia over England in the bronze medal match of the 1986 World Lacrosse Championships. We'll be back to Varsity Stadium right after this. Stadium in Toronto for the bronze medal final of the 1986 World Lacrosse Championships. There you see the score after 3 quarters, just about set to begin the fourth. Australia leading England 16-3. Pretty much the way you had to figure this would turn out, Jim Bishop, because the Australians really on a par with Canada as far as world powers in this sport go, and not too much behind the United States. England a little bit behind those countries.
Yeah, they really have an uphill battle. Even the next several years, they've got a lot of building to do down there before they're on a par with the 3 teams.
Very quickly, the Australians strike again, and that's number 7, Graeme Fox, with the goal. Just to bring you a little bit up to date on what Jeff Kennedy has accomplished so far in this game, the Australian attacker has 10 points, 5 goals, 5 assists. He now leads all the scorers in these World Championships with 21 points total. Roddy Marino of the United States has 20. Now, mind you, Kennedy has played 1 more game, but he's now moved up to first place with 21 points. That's comprised of 8 goals and 13 assists. Marino leads all the scores, or led all the scores going into this game, with 14 goals and 6 assists.
Probably the hardest thing to explain is that Canada is in the championship final game. They beat England only 15-12. And of course, England has not been in this game since the first quarter against the Australians. So maybe the Aussies have a right in at least feeling and comforting themselves a little bit that they felt they should have made it to the goal. But Canada took their game away from them. They took it away by being a little more aggressive, came up with the body hitting that we were talking about in the pregame tonight, which has not taken place in this game out here. Some fine long stick checking in the early part of the game, but not much in the body checking division. And that's where the game of emotion and adrenaline come, and we haven't witnessed much of that here tonight.
The Australians still laying it on pretty good. A call right there. And it'll be against number 5, Phil Ackland.
1 minute for tripping.
A tripping call against Ackland. He's gone for a minute. The penalties, well, the English come up with a goal. It didn't take them very long. Now, I don't know if they're going to call a timeout now or not. They may, to stop that clock and get another chance on the power play.
Well, we haven't seen England use that. Here's the shot again, right in the slot area. And a typical power play goal and man-up goal.
Really not much chance. And goal scored by England's number 16, Paul Short. And we've had a goaltending change for the Australians, too, now. In goal for Australia is number 13, Glen Revell. And he has replaced Bruce Freeman, who's played so well. Revell, a 31-year-old veteran from the Brighton Lacrosse Club. Both the Australian goalies are veterans. Freeman is 30. Revell in goal now, though, for the Aussies. Good transition by the English that time. The manpower advantage is over. 25-minute quarters. This is the fourth. That's how the international game works. There is no stoppage of play unless it's an official's timeout or a team timeout. The officials call timeout for such things as injuries. Other than that, though, the clock runs straight through. The American college game is 15-minute quarters, but they have stop time. Player changes in this game. They just do it on the fly. As soon as the one man steps over the sideline, his substitute can come in.
Well, all England can go now for is a little bit of glory for themselves that they didn't give up totally. The Australians still going for points, trying to rack it up. And the Aussies still playing very aggressive in their own end. And England doing now what they should have done much earlier in the game, and that is to go for possession for a little while. Move it around as they're passing it right now. There's a long shot. A nice play there.
The English obviously going to take advantage of the goaltending change the Australians have made. They're shooting from well out, and that time it paid off. Number 14 for England, Mark Hodkin, took the shot. The Australians going over to talk to Glen Revell now as we see it on the replay, but that was from well out. And here you'll see it once more on the replay. Bounce shot by Hodkin, and Revell just was not equal to the task, so that makes it 17-5. Hodkin's second goal of the game.
Well, I guess the Aussies decided to go back to work. Didn't take them very long as they moved down and used that crease play one more time with Brown putting it away.
Good cross-cage pass again, and the Australians do that so effectively. It's very difficult for the long sticks to ride the attackers when they're moving the ball across like that.
That's a pass play where you'll see the American goaltenders very often pick that pass up in anticipation, or the Canadian goaltender. The English goaltenders have not been playing that cross pass and do have a chance from time to time to get it.
Just a reminder to our viewers that TSN will be bringing you the gold medal game in this 1986 World Lacrosse Championship. That'll be coming your way Saturday evening, 7:30 Eastern Time. Canada against the United States, and that should be a good one. The Americans have won 3 of the 4 World Championships to date. Another nice goal by England. We'll get back to that other game in a moment. But that time going up high on Revell was number 6, Keith Gosney. And Revell has really had only 3 shots at him since taking over from Freeman, and all 3 of them have gone in.
And that's certainly one we could not fault the replacement netminder. As Gosney in front went for the top corner. No hit on him at all, just a little chance at a slash on the stick, and he had the whole right side of the net to put that one away.
Getting back to the final for just a moment, the Americans have won 3 of the 4 World Championships to date. The Canadians won the other one. The only game the Americans have ever lost in the World Championships was to Canada in the 1978 final. 17-16 the score in overtime. Canadian attack coach Stan Cochran scored the winning goal in that game.
That would probably go in World Lacrosse Championship play as the most dramatic moment that the games have had in the 5 years. The Americans, of course, have won 3 and feel that they've got a good shot at winning the 4th one here.
Well, they have no reason not to think they've got a good chance because they've completely dominated the round-robin section of this tournament. And there the trigger is pulled by Peter Morley. Nice pass from in behind the net by Peter Brown. I noticed the Australians have taken Jeff Kennedy out of the game. He was 1 goal shy of equaling the record for the World Championship set by Roddy Marino and Brendan Schneck the other night, as the Americans beat England 32-8.
We'll probably see them back in there, but their game hasn't been slowed down at all. They play the same plays, just different uniforms, different numbers out there. They have the 2 main ways that they score, the cross pass and also the cutters coming in with the feed from the side.
Well, it could very well be that they just don't want to pile it on too much, too, because it's pretty apparent that they've won the bronze medal. With just over 17 minutes remaining, they have a 13-goal lead. And England has given no indication in this game that they're capable of scoring 13 goals. Never mind in 17 minutes. They don't seem to be capable of scoring 13 goals in the entire game. So the Australians are freely substituting at this stage.
And for some of the Australians that are getting in more play than they did in the previous games, it is their last appearance in a World Championship, and for some of the younger ones, it's to give them the experience.
Penalty will be called against England, and will go against number 31, Sean Moran, on the slash. Well, they caught number 15 for the slash instead of Moran. It's a 1-minute violation, personal foul, and that's Richie Bancroft in the penalty area. I thought it was Moran that did the slashing, but somehow or other, Bancroft got fingered. I think he's wondering how he got nailed for that as well.
An official's timeout.
I think you may...
I'm not quite sure what the problem out on the field is.
Well, I have a suspicion it's going to be Moran going to the penalty area. That's just a guess.
The difficult thing, of course, facing the English now is just to stay in there emotionally so they can continue to make a game of it, because in lacrosse, goals can be scored so rapidly that we could have a very large score up on the board, and that's something the English really don't want. So they're going to have to just put it back together again. And
it is Moran being pointed towards the penalty area. I thought I was losing it for a minute there.
Moran probably thought he got away with it there. And
well, I'm sure that Bancroft is still wondering why he's sitting there.
And Bancroft didn't seem to mind too much. He didn't make any disagreement with the official at all. And they're still having the debate out on the field.
This is the only official's timeout we've seen called in this game. Now we have Moran heading towards the penalty area. Well, it could be they got both of them.
Now we may have a personal.
There's a look at the confusion down in the penalty area. Bancroft standing up, Moran now sitting down, and we'll see what the call is, but unless I missed it entirely, I'm pretty sure that the initial call was against Moran. Bancroft was fingered by mistake, so now Bancroft will go out. Let's listen to the officials now.
We've got a technical foul because the relay was wrong. We've got 21 here, and we didn't know to put on the bench. We didn't know to put on there. So the last one who came out said, well, sit on the bench and serve it. We didn't know what it was called.
The foul was on 31. 31 should have come out, so it's a technical foul for him still being in there playing.
Yeah, but 21 came out.
No, 15 came out. 15 came out. 15's the one that went out. So it has to be a technical foul for him playing out there.
Well, there you hear it. There are 2 penalties against England. It was against Moran initially, number 31.
That's a tough break because obviously the number 15 came out thinking that he did have the penalty, and then England has to take the extra penalty.
And as you just heard, the reason they get the extra penalty is because 31 did not come out of the game. Moran stayed in, so it's a technical added on to the initial 1-minute violation for slashing. So now they have a 2-man disadvantage. And they'll shuffle their players until they get the alignment that they're looking for. 19-6 the score. We have 16:08 remaining in the third quarter. That is unofficial time, the scoreboard time. This is the bronze medal game of the 1986 World Lacrosse Championship, coming to you from Varsity Stadium at Eastern Time. Be sure to join us for that one.
I certainly guarantee that on Saturday night you're going to see an entirely different style of game. It should be much, much closer and be much more physical. There'll be a lot more body play out there than we've seen in this game.
This has not been what you'd call intense. Good save by Greg Story, and he is decked by the Australian attack man. The English come up with the ball once again, but Story came out of the net, and that's, as is the case in the box game, when that goalie leaves his crease, he's fair game. That time Story paid the price.
There's another infraction, slashing on the head. There'll be a 1-minute call against the Australians.
That goes against Dennis Newman, and as he was coming off the field, he gave an elbow to another English player. He didn't get caught for that one. So it may be a little more intense out there than it looks from up here.
Because traditionally, these teams really go at each other over the years.
The English working it around outside the restraining line. The Australian long sticks just don't give them much room inside. And there's an example right there.
Fine check in there for number 6, Mounsey.
Mounsey, and the English attacker is down. That's Andy Hiller. Mounsey, it looked like Mounsey got the stick up a little bit. I don't know if we've got it on a replay, but when Hiller was coming out from behind the net, the long stick came up there and hit him. Well, no, it looks like it's down a little lower. We'll see it coming up in just a second. Here you go now. Maybe he twisted his ankle. I thought at first that Mounsey got the stick up a little high. No, he caught him on the stick, but he twisted his ankle perhaps when he was trying to move on Mounsey. So he's being helped off the field.
That's a fine illustration of what the long stick is all about. With the English attacker trying to move out for the shot, the long stick from Australia was able to get in on the glove and meant that he couldn't make the pass at all and couldn't even make the cut. Then he slipped on the grass and went down and probably came up with a slight sprain on the ankle.
Well, that's what they're looking at down on the sidelines as the Australians go back on the attack once more. They lead this game 19-6 with under 15 minutes to play. The bronze medal at stake in these 1986 World Lacrosse Championships. Steve Cooney along with Jim Bishop from Varsity Stadium in Toronto, and we'll be back again Saturday when Canada plays the United States in the gold medal game. 7:30 Eastern Time, we're on the air, so don't miss that one.
You know, it's just a couple of nights ago with Canada down by 5 against this fine Australian team, and Australian playing with the same confidence they're playing here right now. Then all of a sudden, after Dan Wilson body hit along the sidelines, got Canada going, got some emotion into their game. Their big sticks took over, not only defensively, but also on the attack, scoring a couple and setting up a couple more. And of course, the fine American team, they've got the best defense, considered to be the best defense in this World's Championship. They got great outside shooters. They're in a very alert team, well drilled, and we're just going to see a fine game. Canada will have to play very emotionally. They do have the technical skills to not only make it a game, they have the technical skills that could go on and win it. But they've got to be at the very top of their game in order to do it.
The English turning over the ball once more. They got the steal from the Australians and then gave it right back to them.
Fine play of Sawicki in the Canadian goal, of course, is giving them lots of encouragement. Before this series started, this series of World Championship games, the Americans were considered to have the better chance. There's another one of those quick stick shots. There wasn't a defender on him at all.
Goal scored by Ray Duthy. I believe that's his third of the game. Set up by Peter Brown from in behind the net. And the Australians just add to their total.
This is a very typical field goal. They call it a quick stick goal, but there was no defender on either the man behind the net or the shooter out front. And that means that the English mentally have let down quite badly here, though in their own end.
We should add once more that the Australians have substituted very freely in this game. Peter Cann, Jeff Kennedy, all of their major attackers have been sitting on the bench for basically this entire fourth quarter. And it's unlikely you'll see them again.
I would suspect that the Australian coach isn't concerned about individual honors for his team at all. He's just considering that getting everybody in that's worked so hard that deserves that opportunity. He's probably not even aware of the fact that Kennedy's close to a record. But individual records in team sports for most teams and most individuals is not the main thing at all.
You'll hear the, I'm sorry, Jim, you'll hear the goaltender very often barking out instructions to his defenders when the ball is around his net. And that goes for all the teams. It's the goalie is kind of the quarterback of the defense.
And in this case, he's the quarterback of the offense, or trying to be. Yeah, the goaltender calls where the play is all the time, where the ball is, to help those defenders, and you're quite right. He is the quarterback of the defense. It's a game of communication. It's a team defense in this sport, much more so than it is in box. There's certainly a lot more audibles in field lacrosse than there is in box, although I think the box teams could learn from that because there are times that they could use it.
Not much doubt there. Number 4, Jeff Mookley, just put the stick out and got kind of a half arm, half stick around the neck of Australia's number 11, Peter Brown. Here's a look at it on the replay. And they may sign him up for the Calgary Stampede if he does that a few more times.
Whether it's fatigue or just giving up mentally a little bit out there, they haven't moved around too much defensively at all in this last quarter. And the Aussies are right into their game of moving that ball and making that defense slide.
Off the post that time by Brown. Now we're down under 10 minutes to go in the final quarter. 20-6, Australia leading this bronze medal game. So they will accomplish at least part of what they set out to do when they left Australia a week or so ago, and that's bring home a medal. The color isn't quite what they wanted, but a medal nonetheless.
Well, they played so well 4 years ago in Baltimore, where they were the runner-up to the Americans. They felt in the last 4 years they put together even a better team. They were actually coming here to Toronto at Varsity Stadium in Canada, and they were looking for a gold, feeling that they could actually upset the Americans. They had played very well in some of their exhibition games and pre-tournament games as they toured the United States and came into Canada, and were very, very high on their chances. However, they did come up with a game against Canada which was not at the top of their game, and it cost them dearly. They played well here tonight, although they have not had to play with the emotion because the English team have not been a threat.
A couple of added notes on that, and talking to some of the Australians after that loss to Canada the other night, they're convinced that they could give the Americans a better game in the final than Canada will. But in fairness to Canada, you know, you allude to the fact that the Australians didn't play their best game the other night. Part of that is due to the fact that Canada was there to play against them, and Canada played its best game of the tournament. It just happened to coincide with its most important game of the tournament, and as a result, they're playing for the gold medal and not the Australians. I think on any given night, with the circumstances being equal, you'd see that Canada and Australia are pretty close to even.
I think that's a very fair assessment. I think they were considered the toss-up team, certainly originally by the Americans. And then I think the Americans thought that Canada, having played 2 very weak games, didn't have the team here that they might have had. Now that's all changed with the very fine play of the other night. And the most remarkable thing of that win over Australia is that Canada was down 5 goals and had every reason to believe they weren't going to put it together. They hadn't in the first 2 games. And they were against a very fine squad, as we watched here tonight. But I think the Canada finally coming up with the one thing that they can do well. They not only have fine sticks and good shooters, but they can play a physical adrenaline game. And they're going to certainly have to against the United States.
It is getting a little intense out there right now. In fact, it's getting pretty chippy right now, and that's sometimes a danger when it gets out of hand like this late in the game. A 14-goal Australian lead with less than 7.5 minutes remaining. The Australians are a man short right now. Rod Ansell is in the penalty area. He just got caught for high sticking.
I'm sure that the English are very, very disappointed in this series of games. Their game against Canada, in which they lost 15-12 and very easily could have won that game, if they had played with the same emotion and lost by 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 to both the Aussies and the Americans, they could have even gone home having lost 3 or 4 games and still felt not too bad. But they have not played well in 3 of the 4 games that they've been here.
You saw that little game of chase by the Australian net. Glen Revell running around the circle outside his crease area. The goaltender has 4 seconds to get rid of the ball or get out of his crease. And once he's out of the crease with the ball, he cannot go back in. So it ends up kind of like hide and seek once in a while.
Well, he can use that crease, of course, to his advantage and force the other man to chase him around all night if he wanted to.
But that's a mistake the British made that you wouldn't often see the Americans or Canadians or Australians make, for that matter. They make sure there's 2 men in there, so the goalie can't run around the crease area. He's going to get stopped by somebody.
Now we're going to have a little Harlem Globetrotter display out here of ball handling by the Australians as they move it around the perimeter.
Good move by Darren Gibson. Pass over on the far side to Paul Furtado.
Steve, I think you're right. I think the Australian coach has probably told them to only take a shot when they're right in the clear instead of piling it on, although they certainly will take those shots as they just did.
Good riding that time by the Australian long stick, number 2, Cliff Jennings. He just didn't give that man any chance to gather in that pass.
I think the Aussies should be complimented, too, on their defensive game. Even though it's a one-sided game, they haven't let up at all in their own end. They're very aggressive, chasing the ball carrier out there.
We have an offside call against Australia, so possession will go over to the English.
But surprisingly enough, we did not see the body game tonight that we predicted that we would have seen.
They call this a penalty, too. Number 25, Tony Martella, goes to the penalty area for 30 seconds. That's pretty rare that on a line call they will actually give a player a penalty. Usually it's just a change of possession. Bounce shot taken by England's number 10, Paul Everard. Revell, who had a shaky start when he took over from Freeman, has been very solid the last couple of minutes. He's made some good saves. Now down under 5 minutes remaining. This is the bronze medal final of the 1986 World Lacrosse Championships. Australia leading England 20-6. The gold medal final will be coming your way on TSN Saturday night beginning at 7:30 Eastern Time. Canada against the United States. And this place should be electric for that game.
We're going to see a fine crowd. There's no question about it. We'll have 5,000 or 6,000 in here at least for that game on Saturday night. I think there's a couple of main factors going. You know, the United States has already beaten Canada. Canada only has to beat the United States once, and they're going to have themselves a World Championship. That's exactly what happened at Stockport, England 8 years ago. It's not a matter of rewriting that history book and doing it all over again. It's a matter of whether the Canadians are going to come up tough, come up with their emotional game, the mechanics, all the technical skills that are required out there. They have enough to win it. The Americans do have some advantages, particularly the long stick. Offensively, meaning offensively and getting the ball back, they play much better defensively in that area. The Canadians are good with the long stick and coming out, and they're good on the one-on-one. They're not quite as good at taking that ball back off the offensive team.
The other thing, too, is they're not as fast as the American team. They weren't as fast as the Australian team either, though, so that's not always a major factor. Now they've got Kennedy back into the game. That's his 11th point of the night. He set up Australia's number 15 for the goal, Chris Hockey. So they may try to get Kennedy that record-tying goal with just under 3 minutes remaining. Here it is on the replay. Kennedy out in front to Hockey. No mistake.
All that Australian play in tight and in close is so similar to our Canadian box game, although the English are not checking, they're not covering. Therefore, we're seeing a lot of these what look like very easy goals.
And as we look at the Australian bench, we see that they've taken Jeff Kennedy out of the game again. He and Hockey both came out, as did Peter Cann after that last Australian goal. 21-6. 2 minutes, 10 seconds remaining unofficially. That's the stadium clock. There could be some officials' time added on at the end. Usually it's only a matter of a couple of seconds, though. Good play that time by Australian long stick Steve Mounsey. He was all over England's number 9, Malcolm Gosney, and took the ball away from him.
Another example what the long stick can do that the shorter stick cannot do, and that's get around the side of the body and over the shoulder and onto the stick of the attacker that's coming up. Excellent aggressive checking.
Unforced error by Australia, the turnover on the far side. England gets it, starts out, but they turn it right back over again, and that's been the story for them all night long. They have just not capitalized when they did get the turnovers. Australia, on the other hand, turns almost every turnover into a goal or at least a good scoring chance. And here's another example. They're moving in now. Good block by the England defense. The English almost get it back, but the Australians steal once more.
You know, even with the one-sided game,
great save.
Tremendous save, because there hasn't been many saves made on that pipe on the short side, as England's story, and they're doing a fine job on that one.
Into the middle once more. That time the shot taken by number 5 for Australia, Phil Ackland. And here you'll see it once more on the replay. He moves in front. The cross-cage pass that they use so effectively. Bingo. It's up high and in.
He protected that stick, and he took the hit from the long stick and was able to come back up and take the shot. You know, despite the one-sided score here at 22-6 in favor of Australia, it's still a team out there that's very interesting to watch as they move that ball around and dominate this game the way they have.
Now the clock down under 20 seconds. We'll have to wait and see if the officials add any time. They may not even bother in a game that's been decided as long as this one has. Well, they have added some on to it. We're waiting for the horn now. There it goes. Australia defeats England 22-6 to win the bronze medal at these 1986 World Lacrosse Championships. Jim, really pretty much as expected.
Very much so. Maybe the little disappointment that the English didn't come up a little tougher in the physical part of the game. The Australians put on a dazzling display of ball handling, ball control, and were also aggressive defensively, and were worthy winners of the bronze medal.
So there you have it. Australia winning 22-6. We'll be back with more in just a moment. You're watching the World Lacrosse Championships on TSN from Varsity Stadium in Toronto. We'll be right back. Final score once again, Australia defeating England 22-6 to win the bronze medal at these 1986 World Lacrosse Championships, Varsity Stadium in Toronto. Steve Cooney along with Jim Bishop, and Jim, really, going into the game, you had to wonder how Australia was going to come out. They had to be disappointed that they did not get into the gold medal game. They were disappointed, but they still did what they had to do. They're going home with a medal. That means something when they're hosting the World Championships in 1990.
I thought they got off to a slow start, and I thought England looked like they were going to give them quite a battle, but then I think the skills took over, and Australia started to get into the game, forgetting about the fact they weren't in a gold medal game, and settled into their style of play that they have. And I think they're really one of the most exciting teams to watch play the game, the way they can control it and the way they move it around.
And we should point out that the leading scorer in that game was Jeff Kennedy of Australia, who ended up with 5 goals and 6 assists. He was just a factor every time he was out there. We'll be back to Varsity Stadium in just a moment. Reminder to our viewers that coming up on TSN Saturday night at 7:30 Eastern Time, the gold medal final, the United States against Canada. And that should be a dandy. It'll be electric here at Varsity Stadium. You'll get lots of fans from both countries here, and it should be exciting. So, good night from Varsity.